Hi, this is David Mastio, California editor for the Center Square, and this is California in Focus. As always, I'm joined by Kenneth Schrupp, a California reporter for the Center Square. Today, we're talking about illegal immigrants who are also LA police officers and soon may be allowed to have guns off duty. Kenneth, how did we start having illegal immigrants be police?
In 2022, the California state legislature passed a law allowing those who are in this country under President Barack Obama's Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals executive order to become eligible to become police officers. They changed the text of the existing law, which required that police officers either are U.S. citizens or are legal permanent residents who have applied for citizenship, to only require that people be authorized to work in the country legally. This doesn't mean that they have to actually be in the country legally, as DACA recipients by default illegally entered the country as minors. But this change really effectively means that anybody who's in this country with any kind of work permit or work validation, most of the people seeking asylum now are legally able to work in this country, even if they have entered the country illegally. That we're going to have a lot more eligible police officers at a time when most agencies are struggling to hire because American citizens simply don't want to be in the California's police forces anymore.
Is it that we're struggling to recruit police officers, or do we want these police officers specifically to work in immigrant communities?
There's absolutely no connection between wanting people to police their own communities. We simply have a massive manpower problem. You've seen waves of police leaving the job in the aftermath of each of these police accountability protests, first after Ferguson in the mid-2010s, and especially after what happened with the George Floyd riots in early 2020. You saw a huge departure from the police force when you had vaccine mandates enter into effect. The money does not really seem to matter as much to these people who are deciding to leave because people are taking pay cuts to go work elsewhere and just feel like that they are protected by their departments. There are huge pay incentives, tens of thousands of dollars of pay incentives, and LAPD, SFPD are operating at minimal capacity for officers. I think there's something like 1/3 of the officer positions are vacant.
When did the first DACA police officer join the force?
The first DACA police officer joined the force earlier in 2023. And the first class of 9 DACA recipients is coming in spring of 2024. Under their interpretation of federal law that if somebody can become a law enforcement officer, even if they're not here legally, that they're able to carry a weapon, this DACA police officer appears to be able to carry his or her firearm while on duty. But under the Firearm Control Act of 1968, it's illegal for anyone in this country illegally to own, hold, or even operate a firearm.
Did the federal government have to grant some sort of official waiver for them to carry guns in the first place?
It does not appear that the federal government has intervened in stopping this program from being implemented. You have to remember that there's been no Republican administration since this law was passed in 2022. California was the very first to allow this to happen. Colorado was the second, and they just passed their law earlier this year. So this is very much uncharted territory for immigration.
So what is the new issue?
The new issue is whether or not these DACA police are able to carry their firearms off duty, whether they can have their guns on them at all time, because that would likely be in violation of the spirit of the Gun Control Act of 1968. However, you're seeing the police officers largely come out and say, well, being a police officer isn't just a job that you do when you're in uniform on the clock. It's a 24/7 vocation where you're always there to protect your community. And following that logic, if these individuals are not armed when they're off duty, they could easily be targeted for violence. We know that there have been a lot of just targeted killings of police in California over the years. There's major hatred against police, and I don't think people really care if that police officer is here legally or not.
When is this rule change set to go into effect?
This rule change has just been approved as an outline, and well, the actual policy itself is being figured out right now by LAPD. The Los Angeles Board of Police Commissioners did unanimously approve the outline, yet they're still working out the specifics of this. It's going to be anywhere from a few weeks to a few months.
I'm David Mastio with the Center Square, and we've been talking with Kenneth Schrupp, California reporter for the Center Square. You can read his work at thecentersquare.com. Thank you for listening to California in Focus, and please subscribe to our podcast.
Are you tired of news that puts politics over people? At the nonprofit Franklin News Foundation, we believe in putting people over politics by delivering nonpartisan news and audio content that serves you, the American taxpayer. With Franklin News Foundation, you can read fact-based, state-focused news for free at thecentersquare.com. You can listen to civil, balanced conversations between policy experts through our podcast network at americastalking.com. Or you can get in-depth news on K-12 education spending, curriculum, and school safety at chalkboardnews.com. It's all free through Franklin, where we put you, the American taxpayer, first in every story, episode, and conversation. And it's only possible through our supporters. Together, we can produce content that puts people over politics and brings Americans the news they deserve. Become a supporter today at franklinnews.org/donate. Once again, that's franklinnews.org/donate.